So, with this spread of progressivism in the United States, which is essentially another face of communism, how do you think that has impacted the United States' approach to China?
I think it's influenced it heavily. I think in the following respects. First, it's influenced it in the sense that um, progressives are a little bit schizophrenic when it comes to the CCP, in the sense that the CCP violates so many of the elements that American progressivism heavily emphasizes. Rights of minorities, for example, which are absolutely suppressed in the People's Republic of China. But at the same time, that, if you will, they're birds of a feather. That the CCP is a communist entity, and progressivism, if you will, its antecedents or its direct predecessors were heavily influenced by communists. So there's an element of birds of a feather there too, an ideological affinity, but it's a complicated story. It's really the result of coming out of two very different communist traditions. And thank you for bringing up the Gramsci-Frankfurt School, that is communism in the West versus more of the Leninist approach that you've had elsewhere, outside of the West, really. Communism is heavily influenced by Leninist thought. And so you see really that type of elements of affinity, but also elements of very significant difference coming out of those two traditions.
You see this kind of discourse sometimes on, social media about people talking about how, because the U.S. is a hegemonic power, all of these other nations like the PRC or whatever, it's not as bad as the U.S. when it comes to, certain things. And that's why it's worth supporting, the CCP or things like that. But also, a lot of times these people get, like, they're not taken seriously in some ways by people on the left who are also would consider themselves progressive, but also, like the common term for that is tankies, right? Like somebody who supports the CCP or other like left totalitarian regimes, and people who are progressive say like they're giving us a bad name. What would you say about this?
Well, I think that's a tension. Again, there's the elements that communism is vulnerable to internecine warfare and different interpretations, as it always has been, if you will, Bolsheviks versus Mensheviks, different interpretations of how to advance the revolution in the West, Gramsci in the Frankfurt School versus a Leninist, you're going to seize the state through a coup. And these tensions are surfacing, I think, here. So the issue would be progressives value the environment very highly. The CCP does not. Progressives violate minority rights very highly, and rights of women, of course, very highly. The CCP does not. So we could go down a list of tensions, points of tension that exist. At the same time, there's affinity. Purportedly, both are anti-bourgeois, right? In reality, the CCP elite live like billionaires, right? They live they live for themselves, obviously, and their families with incredible luxury, no matter what their ideology says, which is often the case and almost always exclusively the case for communist leaders. Versus progressive thought. So those tensions are going to be there, but also that affinity that they are both attacking bourgeois identities.
Well, there is some affinity because a lot of the elite billionaires in the United States are progressive.
Yes, and why they believe that, of course, I think is a complicated tale and would probably depend on the individual about why he or she believes that. But that's exactly right. They are. And whether they do that simply for tactical reasons, you have to be progressive in order to be, if you will, accepted in many, many different communities in the United States, or they fully believe that and truly believe it. I think that's an empirical issue, but nonetheless, that's exactly right. They are, and they fund it, right? Their money flows Silicon Valley, obviously, Bay Area. We can simply go around. American elites are strongly supportive of progressivism, but they have not yet been forced to confront those tensions. Right? The inherent tensions that are going to exist in their perspective. Do they really want to give up living in Western civilization, and do they really want to give up living in a liberal society? And when they are, I think, faced with that stark question, then perhaps their answers, for some of them at least, might be very different when they're looking at the alternative forms of government, which are going to be not benign, but are going to be very malign and explicitly target the wealthy, right? Explicitly target the rich, and explicitly target individual success, right? And what made Elon Musk possible? Well, he was able to come to the United States ultimately, right? He was able to, very intelligent fellow, a lot of great ideas, who was able to turn those great ideas into a classic American success story, right? That wouldn't happen in China, by the way, right? Jack Ma has many virtues and is an incredibly intelligent individual, but if you get crossways of Xi Jinping, you're dancing on a knife's edge there, as he found out. So when you're faced with actually losing Western civilization and losing political liberalism, these individuals, I dare say, would look askance at that. But they have not been forced to confront those contradictions yet, so they can live in the environment that they choose.
I guess I would say that I'm sure we have a lot of viewers who would consider themselves progressive, or politically on the left, and then they
Shelley
would say,
would tell you that you are filthy communists. That's where you're going with this, right, Shelley?
You're still not going to get me to say it, Chris.
Damn.
But my question is, but they would say, I don't like the CCP.
Yeah.
I'm not a communist. Are you calling me a communist? I think there would be a lot of pushback and offense at that.
Well, certainly. And again, a large part of that might be empirical, right? We don't know those individuals. And again, it allows communist parties themselves, right, are particularly odious, and they're usually, in the West at least, a small number of individuals. But they're very highly motivated, and they recognize the advantage of progressivism, right? You're not saying that you're a communist, you're saying that you're progressive. So behind that front organization or the front terminology, you're able to win much more support. So indeed, individuals might think, I'm a progressive, I'm not a communist, right? But they need to think through in their own mind, right, whether the values that they seek, the values that they hold, and the political beliefs, values that they seek to support and to advance, are they ones which are flirting with totalitarianism, or are they ones that are opening a door to greater individual freedom and prosperity? And that would be an issue that I think that all individuals, all Americans should ask and should reflect, as well as having a greater knowledge about the American political tradition, which is a very complicated political tradition. Louis Hart said, well, liberalism is always going to win. But if you actually look at America's political history, of course, we have had different ideologies. We've had many movements and that have been influenced by religion, that have been influenced by political ideologies, that have been influenced by other states, external states. So it's a very complicated political tradition that we possess. And I think if they are knowledgeable about these issues, if they think through those issues, they might find that they are much more in keeping with a Williams Jennings Bryant type of approach, if you will, a progressivism as it was defined in American political tradition in the 1890s or in the early decades of this century, before progressivism really, as we would understand it as a movement, was captured by or heavily influenced by communists.
I think this is...
Well, I was going to say, what is that progressivism of the 1890s?
Well, the progressivism of the 1890s is that individuals, all individuals, the individual farmer, the individual worker, right? Every individual has to be protected from the abuses of capitalism, from the abuses of, if you will, the fat cats, whether they're in the state capitol or whether they're in Washington or whether they're running the railroad, right? So Brian is coming out of that tradition in the prairies, which is the farmers have to sell to the railroad, right? You got to get your wheat to market, and the railroad is the only way you're going to get it there. And the railroad is saying, we're only going to give you this for that wheat. And so that you're being exploited. And the exploitation is quite raw. They need protection from that so that every individual can live to the best of his or her ability. And that really is at root of a progressive tradition in American political thought. The wealthy are suspect, right? The capitalists are suspect. The monopoly capital is going to be suspect, and it's bad for, if you will, the American people as a whole. So if wealth is too concentrated, right, that has to be there has to be pressures or elements push against that. So that's a very powerful idea in American political thought, which may be more in accord with many individual Americans than what is a totalitarian ideology of communism, which is only going to end in tears. If you go down that path, it's going to be the path that leads to gross human rights abuses and your dreams being turned to ashes.